Hello, my name is Chris Fung. I'm one of the ER docs at Michigan Medicine, where I'm the analytics medical director for our department. And for Medic, I built some of the fun visualizations that we were going to talk about today. Over the last couple of years, we've built a lot of new dashboards and tools to help you explore the data that Medic has collected over the years. The objective of the tools is to allow you and your teams to track performance at the site and individual level, identify areas to improve, and measure performance over time. Using the dashboards we've built, you'll be able to see how your site and or sites compare to other sites in the collective, see how individual physicians perform relative to each other at your site, and to identify specific groups of patients or other factors that may influence the outcomes, either of the main measure or of the balancing measures. In this video, I'd like to show you how to navigate to the QI reports folder where these dashboards are stored, and then explore the All Measures dashboard, which gives you a broad overview of all the different initiatives in which your sites have participated over the years. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start on this landing page, which is sort of the default landing page that you should be able to see when you log into the Medic Tableau site. From here, there's these other dashboards and other data reporting reports that you've probably seen before. We're actually going to click on this orange one called QI reports up here in the top left corner. Clicking on that. And this takes you to sort of a folder right now. This may eventually become sort of an iconed page, but for now it's a folder. What I want you to do is click on the Medic Clinical Champions All Measures dashboard. It should be the one at the bottom. I'm actually going to click on this demo one, which you won't see, but the reason for that is because I'm going to be clicking through some of the demo data. But it should look the same. Once you get to this next page, you're going to click on the summary page, and that'll start up the dashboard. And so give that a second to load. Okay, so from the summary page, you should get a good overview of the look of all the different tabs on this dashboard. There's a bunch of tabs at the top, which you can use to navigate to the different views. You can also use this drop down here, which will get you to the different views. You won't see this development log. At the top of every page, which is formatted like about the size of a piece of paper, so you can always print out the dashboard if that is how your physicians at your sites want to receive the data, as like either a PDF or as a printout. You can actually do that by clicking print PDF up here in the top. You can also print out slides or save slides. Anyway, at the top of every page, you're going to see sort of some information about what the tab is. You're gonna, if you use this pop-up here, by hovering over the eye, you'll have some information about the view, and then about how to sort of navigate the different panels on every page. There should be a bar at the top of every page that has a few buttons on it that lets you pick a different module, pick a year. It's a P4P year, sometimes called a fiscal year, just as on some of the dashboards, but fiscal year basically means the P4P year. The selected site, and you can see that I've selected the Medic demo site, and then a couple of other options. On some of the different pages, you can either show or hide the target. So if you click on false, it'll make those sort of green bars for whatever the target is disappear. If you click true, it'll make them appear again. On some of the views, you can select a minimum cases per site, and that just to allows you to sort of filter out those sites that don't have a lot of cases that are eligible for the selected module. And so, for example, some of the pediatric sites aren't going to have a ton of data for the adult chest pain measure, and so you may want to filter them out. The default is 15 cases. And then from here, you get a broad overview of the entire of all the data for the selected module. I'm going to put it on PE for now. And so this gives you information about the diagnostic yield for the demo site, over the selected time period. And I'm going to pick 1 year now instead of all the years. I'm just going to pick FY22. I just know that that year has some data for the demo site. Some of the panels won't get filtered to the specific year just because they're not meant to. But for FY22 or P4P22, the diagnostic yield is 9.4%. If you hover over these elements, there's some pop-ups that tell you a little bit about the measure and the counts, things like that. And then there's this middle upper panel shows sort of the yearly performance, what the metric target was for each year, and then what sort of the actual performance was here in the last column. This sidebar here shows sort of the rank of the Medic demo site versus the other sites. You're going to see a lot more sites or facilities. It's just that this demo data doesn't have a ton of data in it. And then these other panels sort of are different plots of the selected metric versus either the number of cases, the year, including the performance of other facilities in blue, and then the performance of the selected site in orange. That'll be a theme throughout all the tabs. Or all the different views. And this finally, this middle panel here shows it by quarter. You can select by month, yearly, whatever you want. And so that's the summary tab. Moving over on the tabs at the top. The next two tabs are this site rankings tab and then a provider rankings tab. And so these two tabs show you the performance of your selected site. Some users will have more than one site, and so you'll have to either select the different sites. You'll see in the later tabs there's some options to aggregate those sites together into one sort of data element. But on this site rankings tab, you'll have to select individual sites to highlight. And so basically what you can see is identified data of where your selected site performs relative to other sites for PE. And so some sites at the top are going to have performance above the target, and some sites are going to have a performance below the target. You can either show or hide the target if you'd like. You can also change to a different module. Let's change to chest pain, for example. And then so in FY23, we had a target of 92% safe discharges for adults presenting with chest pain. Looks like most of the sites, except for site number 8, performed pretty well on this metric and met the metric, including the Medic demo site. And so if you hover, it'll give you some information about case counts and things like that. So the next tab I want to talk about is the provider rankings tab. So that's the next tab over from the site rankings, which we just talked about. This page will show you sort of the rankings of all the individual providers, and it gives you some options to either hide and show the names or select specific names of individual providers. So right now I have this selected on, I have pulmonary embolism selected. You can select whatever you'd like. You can pick a year, you can pick your facility. If you have, obviously if you have multiple facilities that you're responsible for, you'll have some options there. And then the next several buttons will allow you to show and hide providers, set a minimum or maximum cases, and then hide and show the target as well. And so I'm going to hide the provider names. Now you can see all these made up names, and these should all disappear now. And so now these get de-identified. But what you could do is you could pick an individual provider. I just know that this one's like one of the fake names that we use. And this should highlight Alfredo here at the top. He's doing a really good job picking out PEs. He got a 40% hit rate on his diagnostic yield. And so what you could do from this page is you could provide feedback to your individual clinicians at each site by picking their name and then hiding all the other providers and just showing people where they stand in terms of a particular metric. And again, you can sort of play with the buttons here at the top, hide and show the target. You can or just show all the provider names. Just sort of depends on what the preferences for your group are. All right, so moving on, the next thing we're going to talk about is an outlier detection view. And so this is where the views sort of get a little bit more complex. And so I do want to walk through this a little bit. Same thing at the top. You can sort of pick facilities, year, module, max min cases, a selected provider. You can hide and show the providers if you want. And so I just want to walk through this view. There's a little bit more information up here in the hover here over the eye as well. But in the top left corner here, you have a plot where you have the selected metric versus the number of eligible cases. And then you have these two lines that are sort of funneling in towards the right side of the plot. This is called a funnel plot, and basically the lines of the funnel represent the 95% confidence interval around the target for the selected time frame. And so right now it's P4P year 23 for pulmonary embolism. And so if you fall outside of the 95% confidence interval, technically you are an outlier. Again, there's not a lot of cases in this demo data, so it's hard to read into what that really means for these four sort of simulated providers that are below the or that are outliers outside the funnel. Obviously, these three providers above the funnel are performing very well because they're statistically above the variation of the rest of the group. But a lot of our metrics tend to be like this. You just sort of have a hit rate that's low, and you have one, if this one provider with 10 eligible cases gets finds a P on the next case, then they're back in sort of the regular range. And so it's like, how do we really know what that means? And that'll be up to individual sites knowing sort of your individual providers and knowing how many cases they have. And so this is why this is plotted against cases. On the right, you have sort of a ranking list. Again, you can show the names, you can hide the names, you can sort of decide how you want to present the data to your individual sites. You can select individual providers on the different plots too, by picking their name out of the selected provider dropdown. At the bottom, you have sort of a plot of the same thing over time, and what you should see here are box plots. I'm going to change this to FY22 just to have a little bit more data in there, and so you'll have these box plots, and you'll see sort of how a selected provider has performed relative to the group over time. And you can see that there's some quarters where someone has 100% hit rate and some quarters where someone has 0. And so you certainly need to take some of this with a grain of salt, just knowing how few cases there are for some of these individual metrics. But again, I encourage you to play with this a little bit, and so you can at your own site, because you'll be able to pick out trends and maybe identify a couple of providers who are very great performers, and maybe some providers that are underperforming the rest of the group, and maybe develop an intervention there. The next site, or the next tab here, will have nothing for me because this is an individual case list. But when you click on case list for yourself, you should be able to see a big case list of cases by provider if you want to select something, and then you can select a numerator or denominator case. And a numerator case usually means someone who met the metric, or a case that met the metric, and the denominator case means that particular visit did not meet the metric. And it'll vary whether or not, what that means based on the type of module or the type of initiative you've selected. And so a little bit more information about the case list you can get from the eye, or you can hover over, again, any element on any tab, and it should give you a little bit more information about the data element you're looking at. All right, and so from here, it gets a little bit more complex, but more fun. This tab here is the time series tab, and what this particular tab allows you to do is it allows you to see the rate of a particular metric that you've selected over time, and then split that time up into a before and after. And so here's where it kind of gets fun and allows you to develop some business insight from the data that we've collected for you over the years. And so I do want to walk through this pretty slowly, just so everyone has a good idea of what exactly you're seeing. Again, it'll look a little bit different for me just because I'm using this demo data and it doesn't have a lot of data in it, but you should be able to see plenty of data across all the sites that you might have, or across or using the one site you have compared to the rest of the collaborative. So what do you see? Same thing at the top, different boxes to make some selections, some more information in the pop-up. But right now what I've selected is pulmonary embolism. My selected site is the Medic demo site. You may have more than one site here, and so you can select more than one and aggregate them together into the orange. The rest of the sites within Medic will be all aggregated into the blue. And so you could select one site at a time, or you could select your entire group or your entire health system at a time and look at that data that way. It sort of depends on what you're looking for. The first few boxes here are set the dates. You can pick a date of interest. So for example, if you did some sort of intervention like an EHR intervention or an educational intervention, you could pick the data that intervention started, and then you can pick the first date to include and the last date to include. And what that will do is that'll create a before and after period. And so then on this middle panel, what you're going to see is a split line graph where the split is at the date of interest, and then there's a before and after period. You can set the before and after period to a different length of time, and so you can see based on the dates we've selected up here, there's actually 610 days in the after period and 365 days in the before period. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to March 2023 just to make it even periods. You can note, and you'll notice that it doesn't. It actually didn't redraw it, and that's actually because the data, just looking at these dates now, the data in the demo data doesn't have data extending past a certain time frame in 2022, and so it won't look very different for me. But that's okay. When you do it on your own, it'll look very different as you change the dates up here. And so what you see in these plots is you're seeing a 60-day moving average for the selected metric. If I selected some other metric like chest pain, the numbers would look different. But let's just go back to PE since we're using that as our example today. And so on the y-axis, you're going to see the rate of diagnostic yield or the rate of whatever metric you have selected. And in the orange, you see the selected sites. In the blue, you see the other sites all aggregated together. You'll see the split, and then you'll see sort of what the rate was in the after period. And you can see that there's a lot of variability. There's a lot of seasonality for a lot of these metrics. And so we've included in the dashed lines a linear trend line that sort of just gives you an idea of like what the trend was for the selected sites or for the other sites by before and after period. In the bottom panel here, you're going to see the case counts, the numerator cases, the denominator cases, the number of unique physicians making up the data, and then the sort of before and after diagnostic yield at the selected sites and the other sites. And then you don't see a ton here because you just see the demo site data. It's sort of like this artificially created data. But for you, you'll actually see all your selected sites broken out if you have multiple sites selected and you'll be able to see sort of a before and after diagnostic yield. And again, if you hover over any of these elements, it'll sort of give you some information about the specific element. I would encourage you to play with this a lot because it will really give you some good information about how the rate of a particular intervention or a rate of a particular metric has changed over time. If you want to see it as one panel, you can actually play with the dates so that you can only see one panel. You can only see one period. And so if you wanted to see it that way, you could do that as well. And there's some information about that in the pop-up. The last tab I want to cover is the balance measures tab. And why don't we pick a different module for this? Let's use chest pain. It's one I know a little bit more too. And so what we're going to do is walk through this again, just like all the other panels. And this one's a little bit more complex as well, but again, gives you a lot of insight about what's going on at your particular site for a specific initiative. And again, so this is the balance measures view. There's information in the pop-up, lots of selections here at the top. You can hide and show things. You can select different years. It's probably the most useful just to pick all years for this, because the balancing measures are very rare. Like the outcomes on the balancing measures are very rare, and so they're infrequent events. And so probably aggregating it to the year is the right move here. And so what you're going to do from here is you're going to select your module. I selected chest pain, and then you have to make a second selection as to what the balancing measure is. And so we have a bunch of different options for chest pain. You can select a low-risk population, or you can just select any chest pain visit. Those are the first three versus the last three. But within the low-risk group, you can select any visit 30 days after the index chest pain visit, any diagnosis of ACS 30 days after the index visit, and then any major adverse cardiac event 30 days after the index chest pain visit. You can do that for the low risk patients, and then also the entire chest pain group. And so why don't we pick major adverse cardiac events 30 days after the visit. And so you're going to select this by clicking the red circle, and that's the button for it. And so then that will replot the middle graph here. And so what you're seeing here is another line graph. This one is not a moving average. This is the absolute data. On the x-axis, you see the P4P year listed as fiscal year. You can actually you can make it more granular if you want. You don't have to, and you can see that in the demo data, the FY23 data is a little weird. So I'm going to actually re-aggregate it, or drill up. You can drill down to make it more granular. You can drill up to make it less granular. And so I've made it back to the default, which is by P4P year. On the left axis, you see the rate of the balancing measure, and then they're the thicker lines. And then on the right axis, you see the rate of the actual metric itself in the background in these faded lines. Again, in orange, you're going to see the selected sites. In blue, you're going to see the aggregate of all the other sites within Medic. And then so you can see that in the demo data, at least in the orange, we had a decrease in the from 2021 to 2022 and 2023 P4P years. We had a decrease in the major adverse cardiac events rate, again in these thicker lines, while having an increase in the safe discharge rate of these low-risk chest pain patients. And again, that's in the faded lines in the background. Pretty much a similar trend for all the other sites. You can see it's a little bit more stable. You're always going to see like much more stable data for the aggregate of all the other sites, because it's a much bigger number. And then in the bottom left panel, you see the rate of the selected balancing measure plotted against the rate of the metric, and then individualized to the different sites which are de-identified. Your site or sites will be in the larger orange circle, and all the other sites will be in the blue circles, which are a little bit smaller. And then you'll see a case list on the right. The case list will show the balancing measure patients that triggered the balancing measure. And so you can do a deep dive on these. Obviously, this is fake data, but you can hover over this little dot and then look at this MRN. You can look it up in your own EHR. So that's it. That's the last of the views on the All Measures dashboard. I hope this video was helpful for you. Again, feel free to reach out to Katie, me, or any of the Medic team with questions. This will be sort of the first in a series of other videos that sort of explain how to use some of the dashboards to again help you all investigate the data at your own sites, explore it, develop new projects, new quality interventions, track performance, whatever you want. The overall theme is that we want you to be able to develop some insights about your own practice, your colleagues' practice, your site's practice, whatever, at your site, and in using data is the best way to do that. Thank you very much.